I did not expect to hear my own name in hell, not in that place of smoke, flame, and voices that shook the soul. But as I stood there, trembling beside the Lord, a thin, frightened cry rose from the darkness. "Sister Ruth, help me, please!" My heart slammed in my chest. It was the voice of a child. A small hand pushed through the burning shadows, tiny fingers shaking violently. The flames curled around him but did not consume him. They tormented him, endlessly. "Jesus," I whispered, unable to breathe. Why is there a child here?" The Lord's face grew sorrowful. "Because bitterness took root in his heart," he said, "and the unforgiveness of his parents opened the door." Then the child screamed again, and everything in me broke. My name is Sister Ruth Mba, and I come from a quiet town on the outskirts of Nakuru, Kenya. I didn't grow up with wealth or influence, only a praying mother, a hard-working father, and a simple wooden church where I first learned to fear God. From the age of 9, I began seeing things other children didn't: shadows around angry people, light around those who forgave quickly. At the time, I didn't understand what God was showing me. As I entered my teenage years, the spiritual sensitivity intensified. At 17, I had my first open vision of a demon whispering into the ear of a crying child. That single encounter changed the direction of my life. I became burdened, not for adults, but for children. I could feel, almost physically, the wounds they carried, emotional cuts that no one saw, silent heartbreaks that parents ignored. My calling grew clearer with time, to intercede for children spiritually bruised by the battles of their parents. I served in children's ministry for years, counseling young ones who carried anger they could not explain. Many told me, "Auntie Ruth, when my parents fight, something dark sits on my bed at night." Their words haunted me, but what shook me the most was the similar battle I quietly carried from my own past. My parents nearly separated when I was 12. I remembered the fear, the confusion, the bitterness I felt toward them, even though they later reconciled. I knew firsthand how quickly darkness tries to take advantage of a wounded child. It was this personal history that pushed me into a life of fasting and prayer. I wanted God to show me why so many children were spiritually afflicted, why so many innocent hearts carried shadows far too heavy for their age. 3 days before my encounter, I entered a private fast. I asked God one question: why are children suffering spiritually because of the mistakes of adults? I expected a dream, maybe a scripture, perhaps even a prophetic impression. What I didn't expect was to be taken into the depths of hell itself. I had no idea that God was about to show me a child whose soul was lost, not because he rejected God, but because bitterness opened a door no one ever closed. The night everything changed, I was on the 3rd day of my fast. My body felt weak, but my spirit was strangely alert, almost trembling with an expectation I could not explain. I had spent the entire afternoon praying for families, for children in broken homes, for God to heal the wounds that parents often leave unnoticed. Around midnight, the atmosphere in my room shifted. The air thickened, so heavy I could barely inhale. My small prayer lamp flickered violently, though there was no wind. I knelt beside my bed, whispering, "Lord, I am here. Show me what you want me to understand." Suddenly, a cold wind, unnatural and biting, swept through the room. My skin tightened. The hairs on my arms rose. It felt as though the walls were breathing. Then everything went silent, completely silent. Even the distant crickets outside stopped singing. A sharp pain struck my chest. I gasped. It felt like an invisible hand reached inside and pulled. My vision blurred, then split, one part of me still kneeling, the other rising slowly above my body. I realized, with terrifying clarity, my spirit had been separated from my flesh. I floated toward the ceiling, helpless, until my room dissolved into darkness. Thick, swallowing darkness. I tried to speak, to call the name of Jesus, but no sound left my mouth. My voice felt imprisoned. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, something grabbed my leg. A hand. Cold, scaled, inhuman. It yanked me downward with violent force. I screamed, but the sound died inside me. We plunged through a tunnel, so black it felt tangible. I could smell sulfur, burning metal, the stench of rotting flesh. Whispers rushed through the tunnel like poisoned wind, voices speaking curses, mockery, and the screams of souls. The creature dragging me laughed, a horrible, guttural sound that vibrated through my bones. I shut my eyes, whispering desperately in my heart, "Jesus, Jesus, please." Then, light. A blinding golden light exploded before me. The demon shrieked and released my leg. I fell onto hard, dry ground, trembling violently. 2 familiar feet stepped toward me. Sandals, white garment glowing with impossible purity, a presence that wrapped me in love and fear at the same time. I lifted my face slowly. It was Jesus. But his expression was not gentle. It was sorrowful, deeply sorrowful. "Sister Ruth," he said softly, "I brought you here because there is something you must witness, something the world refuses to understand." His voice echoed through the cavernous darkness around us. In the distance, I heard a scream, high, sharp, innocent. A child's scream. Jesus turned his face toward the sound. "Bitterness," he said, "is a seed the enemy plants in wounded hearts. Even a child can carry it. Tonight you will see what happens when parents refuse forgiveness, and a child becomes the victim." My legs weakened. I was standing at the entrance of hell, and Jesus was leading me deeper. Jesus walked ahead of me, his light pushing back the suffocating darkness as we moved deeper into the cavern of tormented souls. The screams grew louder, layers of agony, anger, regret. But beneath them all, I could still hear that one voice, the cry of a child, thin, breaking, desperate. As we descended, Jesus lifted his hand. Instantly the noise dimmed, not fully silenced, but suppressed like distant thunder. "I want you to understand how his journey began," Jesus said, his voice filled with grief. "For no child enters this place without a doorway opened." With a simple gesture, a scene formed before us, floating like a living memory. A small house, cracked walls, a broken gate swaying in the wind. Inside, a little boy sat alone on the floor, hugging his knees. His eyes were red, swollen from crying. He couldn't have been more than 9. His clothes were worn, but clean, the kind that showed a mother once tried her best before life crushed her heart. This was the boy whose scream pierced hell. His name appeared before me in gentle, glowing letters. Eliab. I watched him silently wipe his tears with the back of his hand as voices erupted from the next room. A man shouting, a woman sobbing, accusations flying like knives. Jesus' voice broke into the scene. His parents loved him, but not enough to love each other. The argument intensified. The father stormed out. The mother threw a cup against the wall. Eliab flinched, covering his ears so tightly his little fingers trembled. "Every night he prayed the same prayer," Jesus continued. "God, please make them love each other again." Night after night the prayer rose, and night after night the home grew darker. Eliab became quiet at school. He stopped playing. He stopped smiling. Teachers assumed it was normal sadness, but Jesus shook his head. No sadness is normal when it opens a spiritual wound. The memory shifted. Now Eliab lay on a small mattress in a cold room, crying with his face buried in a thin pillow. This time a shadow sat at the edge of his bed, a dark figure, hunched, whispering into his ear. I felt cold spread through me. "What is that?" I whispered. Jesus turned to me, eyes filled with sorrow. "The enemy. He comes early when parents open spiritual doors they refuse to close." The shadow pressed its mouth near Eliab's ear. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but Jesus allowed me to sense the lies. You're the reason they fight. They don't want you. You are the problem. No one loves you. Eliab clenched his tiny fists, believing every lie. His heart, already fragile, absorbed the poison. A dark vine appeared around his chest, sprouting slowly, feeding on the whispers. Bitterness. This is how it begins, Jesus said softly. One wound, one lie, one root of bitterness. The scene shifted again. Weeks later, the parents separated legally. Eliab's father left the house. The mother sank into depression. Eliab stopped praying, stopped eating well, stopped talking to anyone. He loved his parents more than they knew, Jesus said, and the hurt became the doorway. Then came the day of his death. Eliab walked alone from school. It had rained earlier. The road was slippery. A speeding motorcycle lost control. The impact was sudden, faster than a breath. I covered my mouth as his small body hit the ground. He did not die angry, Jesus explained. He died broken, and bitterness was the chain that pulled him downward. The memory dissolved. We were back in hell, standing before the pit. Jesus looked at me with the deepest sadness I had ever seen in his eyes. This is the child whose cry you heard. His story does not end with death, but with the doorway bitterness opened through his parents' unforgiveness. Then, the child screamed again, and Jesus said, "Now you will see what became of him." Jesus led me closer to the pit where the screams were rising like hot smoke. The ground trembled beneath my feet, alive, pulsing with the torment of souls. As we approached the edge, a sudden gust of scorching wind slapped my face. I shielded my eyes, but Jesus touched my shoulder gently. "Do not fear," he said. "You must see this clearly." And then I looked into the pit. At first, all I could see was fire, thick, violent flames twisting like living creatures. But as my eyes adjusted, a small shape emerged in the center of the inferno. A child, Eliab. His little body was curled, trembling, surrounded by dark vines of bitterness that wrapped around him like chains. They glowed with a sickly black light, tightening each time he cried. And he cried, oh, how he cried. His voice was raw, cracked, exhausted. When he saw Jesus, his eyes widened, not with hope, but with shame. "Jesus, I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I didn't mean to hate them. I didn't mean to feel angry. I just wanted them to stop fighting." The flames roared around him, reacting to his emotions. Each word of regret seemed to trigger a fresh wave of torment. I fell to my knees at the sight. "Why is he still suffering?" I cried. "He was just a child." Jesus knelt beside me, his face full of unbearable sorrow. Because bitterness was never removed, the wound remained open. His parents' unforgiveness fed the darkness that grew in him. Eliab reached his small hand upward, stretching desperately toward Jesus. "Please, tell my mother I forgive her. Tell my father I don't hate him. Tell them I needed them." His voice broke into a scream as the dark vines tightened again. A demon, hideous, shadowy, pulled at the vines, laughing with cruelty, whispering lies into Eliab's ear, lies he once believed in life. I wanted to jump into the pit, to pull the boy out with my own hands, but Jesus stopped me. "You cannot," he said softly. "No one leaves this place. This is why I show you, so others can be warned before it is too late." Tears streamed down my face. The child sobbed louder, and hell echoed with the heartbreak of a life destroyed by bitterness. The flames dimmed slightly as Jesus rose to his feet. His sorrow-filled eyes remained fixed on Eliab's trembling form, but his voice shifted, firm, authoritative, carrying the weight of eternal truth. "Sister Ruth," he began, "many parents believe their battles stay between them. They do not understand that children are spiritual mirrors. Whatever is planted in the home, peace or anger, forgiveness or hatred, grows first inside the child. His words pierced me like arrows. Jesus stretched his hand outward, and instantly the pit transformed into a vision, not of hell, but of Eliab's home. I saw the father slamming the door, the mother screaming into a pillow, the boys sitting alone in the hallway while the walls soaked up their bitterness like poison. Every harsh word, Jesus continued, tore his soul. Every silent night fed the wound. Every accusation thrown between his parents became a seed planted inside his spirit. The scene shifted again. I saw demons lurking in the corners of the house, feeding on the anger. They clung to the parents' unforgiveness like vines, waiting for the smallest opening. Their unforgiveness opened the door, Jesus said softly. Bitterness is a spirit, one that requires agreement. Eliab did not understand what he was agreeing with, but his pain made room for it. Suddenly, I saw the mother crying in her bedroom, whispering, "I can't forgive him." Then the father, sitting alone in a car, muttering, "I'll never forgive her." Their words became chains, and those chains wrapped not around themselves, but around their son. Jesus turned to me, his expression heavy with divine grief. "It was not the divorce that condemned him," he said. "Many children survive separation when love remains. It was the unforgiveness, the bitterness neither parent uprooted, that gave darkness legal access to the child." I felt the breath leave my body. "Lord," I whispered, trembling, "but he was so young." "Yes," Jesus said, "and that is why the enemy targeted him. Children are the easiest to wound, the quickest to believe lies, the most fragile when their hearts are left unprotected." The vision returned to Eliab in the pit. The boy was crying again, this time repeating the same words over and over. Why didn't they stop fighting? Why didn't they love each other? Why didn't they see me? Each question tore me apart. Jesus continued, "When parents war against each other, they unknowingly sacrifice the emotional stability of their children. And in the spirit, emotional wounds are doors. A wounded child becomes vulnerable to attacks they do not understand." He paused, then spoke with a voice that shook the cavern. "Parents are the first shepherds of a child's soul." The flames reacted to his words, shrinking away as if afraid. "What they refuse to heal," he said, "their children inherit. What they refuse to forgive, their children carry. What they plant, their children become." I felt tears soaking my hands. Jesus placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "This is why I brought you here, to warn them. Children do not only suffer physically or emotionally, they suffer spiritually, and the enemy uses every opportunity." I looked again at Eliab, small, broken, lost, and I understood. His pain began with his parents, but the consequences fell on him. The pit before us pulsed with the sorrow of countless souls, but Jesus' presence cut through the darkness like a river of light. I could see Eliab's small figure still trembling, still chained by the vines of bitterness. I wanted to reach in, to pull him out, but I remembered Jesus' words. "No one leaves this place once they are bound here." He looked at me with eyes full of grief and authority. "Sister Ruth," he said softly, yet every word carried the weight of eternity. "You were brought here to witness what bitterness does to children, and to warn those who still have time. This child's story is not yet finished. In the world, others can be saved if parents choose forgiveness." I swallowed hard. My throat burned with unshed tears. "Lord, what do I tell them? How can they understand?" I whispered. Jesus' gaze softened, but his message was unshakable. "Tell them this," he said. "A child's soul is precious. Whatever seeds you plant in the home, anger, unforgiveness, resentment, will grow faster than you imagine. Every harsh word, every night of unresolved conflict is spiritual fuel for the enemy. Children are innocent, but they carry what adults leave behind." The light around him intensified. A warmth filled my chest, as if he were breathing life into my spirit. "Intercede for children," he continued. "Pray for homes. Teach parents to forgive. Stop the cycle before the door is opened." I looked once more at Eliab. The sight of him, so young, so broken, yet full of a childlike innocence, shattered me. I wanted to stay, to beg Jesus to release him. But I felt his hand gently on my shoulder, lifting me, guiding me away. Suddenly, the pit and the flames dissolved. The screaming faded. I felt my body, cold, weak, trembling, back on the floor of my room. My prayer mat lay beneath me. My fasting room was quiet, the darkness of the night pressing gently against the windows. I gasped, trying to speak, but my voice was gone for several moments. Tears streamed down my face as the weight of what I had witnessed settled in my heart. I understood now, fully and painfully, why God calls parents to forgiveness, why he warns against harboring bitterness, and why the spiritual health of children is so fragile. I whispered a prayer of intercession for Eliab, for children like him, and for the parents still alive, unaware of the doors they were leaving open. Then his words came softly into my mind, echoing with urgency. "Go, Sister Ruth. Warn the world. Heal the homes while there is still time. Children are watching. Children are listening. Children are inheriting the choices of adults." And with that, I knew my mission had only begun. I speak to you now, not as a storyteller, but as one who has seen the reality of what bitterness can do to a child. Eliab's cries are still echoing in my soul, and I cannot keep silent. Parents, guardians, anyone with influence over a child's heart, hear me. Forgive. Forgive today. Don't wait for pride, anger, or stubbornness to steal your child's future. Every unresolved conflict, every night spent in bitterness, plants seeds of darkness in the hearts of your children. These seeds grow silently, but their fruit is devastating. Eliab's life, his suffering, was not his choice. It was the consequence of doors left open by unforgiveness. Do not underestimate the spiritual reality of the home. Children are fragile. They internalize everything. And the enemy waits for the smallest crack to enter. Your love, your patience, your forgiveness. It is the shield that protects them. Pray for your children. Intercede for their hearts. Teach them love, not anger. Teach them forgiveness, not bitterness. And most importantly, heal yourself so that they do not inherit wounds they cannot carry. It is never too late to change. Let the story of Eliab be a warning, but also a call to action. Close the doors to darkness. Heal your homes. Rescue children from pain before it becomes a spiritual trap. Remember this: God sees every tear, hears every prayer, and longs to restore broken hearts. Be the parent, the guardian, the mentor who stands for love, forgiveness, and life. Let bitterness end with you, not continue in your children.